The top speed of the Bugatti Veyron is 253 miles an hour.
58, 206, I'm going faster than I can speak.
That's faster than a commercial plane takes off at. It's... And then we've got top speed mode! Get in! We've now unlocked the top speed mode with the Bugatti key.
After months of rebuilding, hundreds of thousands spent, and countless setbacks, it now looks exactly how a Bugatti should. But there's one problem. It still won't do what Bugatti built it to do. Because while Matt Armstrong was rebuilding one of the fastest cars ever made, a battle was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. And according to many viewers, Bugatti didn't just refuse to help. They may have actively stopped this car from ever reaching its full potential. So how does a YouTuber spend months rebuilding a hypercar only to discover the biggest challenge wasn't the crash damage? And why are thousands of people now accusing Bugatti of protecting something far bigger than safety?
Bugatti want £20,000 to service my Bugatti Veyron. Today, we're going to do it for a lot cheaper. It's a well-known fact. Bugatti Veyrons are expensive to maintain.
So here is what happened. A Bugatti Veyron, one of the most iconic hypercars ever built, ended up at auction after being repossessed. Now, repossessions happen all the time, nothing unusual there. But this one came with a note attached. The previous owner had reportedly stopped driving it because of an electrical issue, and not some catastrophic, engine-destroying, wire-melting catastrophe. No. The rumor going around was that the whole problem might be as simple as a blown fuse. But Matt had built a reputation doing exactly that, turning impossible projects into running cars. So he bought the Veyron and started documenting every step. At first, everything seemed straightforward, difficult, expensive, but possible. Then things started getting strange. Because the deeper Matt got into the project, the harder it became to get support from the people who built the car.
The reason they wouldn't sell us parts for the Bugatti Chiron is because they believed that it was unsafe to do so. It's unsafe for us to do the repair outside of Bugatti, whereas this Veyron is a complete car. There's nothing unsafe.
But that was only the beginning, because the real problem wasn't rebuilding the Veyron. The real problem was making it behave like a Veyron. And that's where Bugatti's top speed system enters the story. After all, Bugatti builds some of the most advanced cars on Earth. Nobody expects a 250+ mph hypercar to operate under the same rules as an ordinary family car. But the deeper Matt got into the Veyron, the harder it became to ignore. Because this wasn't simply a case of replacing broken parts and driving away. The closer the car got to completion, the more attention shifted towards something most people had never even thought about. The top speed system. For years, the Bugatti Veyron's top speed had been one of the most legendary figures in the automotive world. More than 250 miles per hour. A number so absurd that it helped transform the Veyron from a car into a global phenomenon. But what many people didn't realize was that Bugatti never intended owners to access that performance whenever they felt like it. The car operates in different modes, and reaching its maximum speed requires a completely separate process, a special key. In Bugatti's eyes, it was a necessary layer of protection. But to many viewers following Matt's rebuild, it started to look like something else: control. Because as the project progressed, one question kept coming back. If someone legally owns the car, why should anybody else decide what they can or can't do with it? And that's where the internet began taking sides. One side argued that Bugatti was right. A vehicle capable of those speeds isn't just another car. At 250 miles per hour, mistakes become catastrophic. The margin for error disappears. Safety standards exist for a reason. From that perspective, Bugatti's restrictions made complete sense. But the other side saw something very different. They argued that ownership should mean ownership. That once a customer buys the vehicle, it belongs to them. Not the manufacturer, not the dealer network, not a corporate office thousands of miles away. Them. And as those debates spread across comment sections, forums, and social media, Matt kept doing what he always does. He kept working. Because while everyone else was arguing online, he still had a Bugatti sitting in the workshop, and there were still problems to solve. What made the situation even more fascinating was that every breakthrough seemed to expose just how complicated the Bugatti ecosystem really is. Most cars are designed to be repaired. Difficult, sometimes expensive, but repairable. The Veyron often felt different. almost as though every system expected Bugatti itself to be involved somewhere along the process. And for independent rebuilders, that's where things become difficult. Because without factory support, every answer takes longer to find. Every solution requires more experimentation. Every step becomes a challenge. Yet despite all of that, the project kept moving forward. The Veyron started looking complete. The workshop started believing the finish line was finally approaching. Viewers started imagining the moment they'd all been waiting for. The first real test. The moment the rebuilt Bugatti would prove itself. And if that happened, it would create a problem nobody had anticipated. Because a running Veyron changes the conversation. A driving Veyron changes the conversation. But a Veyron that proves it doesn't need Bugatti to return to life changes the conversation entirely. Whether Bugatti intended it or not, Matt's project had become bigger than a rebuild. Every episode was now feeding a much larger discussion about repair rights, ownership rights, and manufacturer control. Questions that affect far more than just Bugatti. Questions affecting modern supercars, modern EVs, modern technology in general. Who controls the product after it's sold? The company that built it, or the customer who bought it? Suddenly, millions of viewers weren't just watching a Bugatti get repaired. They were watching that question play out in real time. And then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The Veyron was finally ready to be tested. Months of work had led to this point. Countless hours, countless setbacks, countless unexpected problems, all leading toward a single question. Would the car finally perform like a Bugatti? Because looking like a Bugatti isn't enough. Sounding like a Bugatti isn't enough. Driving like a Bugatti isn't enough. A Bugatti has a reputation, a promise, a standard. And until the Veyron could prove itself at speed, some people would always question whether the rebuild was truly complete. That's what made the next phase so important. The workshop had already won one battle. They had brought the car back from the dead. Now they had to prove it could live. But this is where the story takes another turn. Because just as the mechanical problems were beginning to disappear, a much bigger obstacle emerged. One that couldn't be solved with tools. One that couldn't be fixed with replacement parts. One that couldn't be fabricated in a machine shop. Because the next challenge wasn't hidden inside the car, it was hidden inside the rules surrounding it. And according to many viewers, that's where the real fight with Bugatti truly began. The rebuild had tested Matt's mechanical abilities. What came next would test something completely different. Patience, persistence, and the willingness to challenge a system that many people simply accept. Because the closer the Veyron got to becoming a real Veyron again, the more obvious one thing became. The hardest part of rebuilding a Bugatti isn't fixing it. It's convincing everyone else that you're allowed to. By this point, the Veyron had already done something most people thought was impossible. It had survived. Not just as a project sitting in pieces across a workshop floor, but as a functioning Bugatti. The engine ran, the systems communicated, the car moved under its own power. For most rebuilds, that's where the story ends. For this one, it felt like the story was only beginning, because the closer Matt got to the finish line, the more viewers started focusing on the same thing. The number. More than 250 miles per hour. The figure that made the Veyron legendary. The figure that separated it from every other supercar of its era. The figure Bugatti spent years using to define the car, and suddenly people were asking a simple question. If the car is fixed, why shouldn't it be able to do what Bugatti promised it could do?